AITA for refusing to apologize to my sister after I canceled a family tradition she took over without asking. 28F, am the oldest of 3 siblings. Growing up, my parents ran a small neighborhood bookstore. It never made much money, but it was the heart of our family. Every December, we hosted a free holiday reading night for kids in the area. I dressed up, read stories, baked cookies, and stayed late to clean. When my parents retired and sold the store when I was 22, I was the one who organized a final reading night in our living room, so the tradition wouldn't just disappear. That night turned into a yearly thing in my apartment. It wasn't fancy, just a few families, cocoa, and books, but it mattered to me because it was the one tradition I felt I'd truly carried forward. Over the years, the guest list shrank. Families moved, kids grew older, and eventually it was mostly relatives and a couple of neighbors with younger kids. Still, I kept doing it. I paid for everything and hosted, even when it was inconvenient. My siblings always showed up late, ate, and left early. I didn't mind because I wasn't doing it for praise. I was doing it because it felt like honoring something important. Last year, I started a new job that required travel. Around September, I told my family I wasn't sure I could host the reading night this year because I might be out of town in December. I said if I was gone, we'd have to skip a year. My sister Lily, 26F, immediately said, "Oh, don't worry, I'll just do it at my place." I laughed and said we could talk about it later, but I never actually agreed. A few weeks later, Lily sent out a group message to the family and neighbors announcing the date and time of our annual holiday reading night at Lily's house. She used the same name I always use for the event and even mentioned continuing the tradition our parents started. I felt weird about it, but didn't say anything right away because I didn't want to cause drama. Then in November, I found out I wouldn't be traveling after all. I messaged the group saying I'd be hosting the reading night as usual. Lily immediately called me and said I was being unfair because she'd already planned everything and told people. I told her I hadn't agreed to hand it over and that it meant a lot to me to host. She said I was being controlling and that traditions don't belong to one person. Here's where things escalated. Lily started telling relatives that I was trying to gatekeep the family and that I didn't want anyone else involved. That wasn't true. I just didn't want the one thing I'd been consistently doing taken over without a conversation. I asked her to either help me host or we could alternate years, but she refused and said if it wasn't at her place, she wouldn't come. I was hurt and angry, so I made a decision. I canceled the reading night entirely. I sent a message saying that due to scheduling conflicts and confusion, there wouldn't be a reading night this year. I apologized to the families and said we'd try again next year. I didn't mention Lily at all. Lily lost it. She called me crying, saying I embarrassed her and ruined something she was excited about. She said the kids were disappointed and that I did it out of spite. My parents are split. My mom says I should have just let Lily host and that I'm being stubborn over something small. My dad says Lily should have talked to me first, but also thinks canceling was extreme. From my perspective, it felt like my sister saw something I cared about, assumed it was up for grabs, and then painted me as the villain when I didn't immediately step aside. Canceling wasn't about punishing anyone. It was about stepping back from something that had turned into a source of resentment instead of joy. But now I'm being told I owe Lily a public apology and that I should admit I overreacted. I genuinely don't know if I'm too close to this to see it clearly. I didn't want to fight, but I also didn't want to feel pushed out of something I built and maintained for years. So AITA for canceling the event instead of letting my sister take it over and for refusing to apologize for that choice. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my brother take over my annual family vacation tradition after he said I was gatekeeping and ruining family bonding. I, 39F, have been organizing our extended family's annual summer vacation for the past 8 years. It started after our grandparents passed away and the family drifted apart. I took it upon myself to rent a large cabin near a lake, coordinate dates, collect payments, plan meals, and organize activities so we could all spend time together. It's a lot of work, but it became something I was proud of, and most of the family appreciated the effort. Everyone pays their share, and I don't make a profit. I just manage the logistics. My younger brother, Kevin, 35M, has always attended but never helped much with planning. He'd show up, relax, and occasionally complain about minor things like the schedule or the food. I brushed it off because everyone seemed to enjoy themselves overall, and I didn't mind being the organizer. This year, Kevin announced that he wanted to take the vacation in a new direction. He said the cabin was boring, the activities were too structured, and the whole thing felt controlled. He proposed switching to a beach resort several states away, doubling the cost, changing the dates to something that worked better for him, and removing most of the planned group activities. He framed it as being more relaxed and modern. I told him that if he wanted to organize a separate trip, he was free to do so, but I wasn't comfortable changing the established vacation that many people plan their year around. Several relatives have limited budgets, limited vacation days, and medical needs that make long travel difficult. The lake cabin works because it's affordable, familiar, and accessible. Kevin didn't like that answer. He said I was acting like I owned the family vacation and accused me of gatekeeping traditions. He claimed that because I had organized it for years, I'd become controlling and resistant to change. I explained that I wasn't opposed to change, but that drastic changes should be discussed with everyone, not decided unilaterally, especially when costs and accessibility were involved. Instead of talking it out, Kevin went behind my back. He started a separate group chat with selected family members, pitching his version of the vacation and framing me as someone who refused to compromise. He told people I was stuck in my ways and unwilling to let anyone else lead. Some relatives were confused and thought I had canceled the original trip. When I found out, I was upset. I sent a message clarifying that the lake vacation was still happening as planned and that Kevin was free to organize an additional trip if people wanted. Kevin accused me of undermining him and said I was intentionally dividing the family. He said if I really cared about family bonding, I would step aside and let someone else take over. I pointed out that he hadn't once offered to help organize in the past, didn't want to take on the logistics this year either, and only wanted control over the destination and vibe. He said that was irrelevant and that I was clinging to power because organizing made me feel important. Things escalated when he told our parents I was being selfish and inflexible. My mom suggested I share control by letting Kevin choose the location this year. My dad said traditions shouldn't belong to one person. I said I was open to rotating planners in future years, but that changes should be gradual and agreed upon, not forced at the last minute. Kevin then announced he wouldn't attend the lake trip and said anyone who went was choosing comfort over growth. He implied I was holding the family back and sent me a message saying I'd turned something meant to unite us into something divisive. Now the family is split. Some are attending the lake trip, as usual. Others are considering Kevin's idea for next year. A few think I should have stepped aside immediately to avoid conflict. I feel hurt and frustrated. I never wanted ownership over the tradition, but I also don't think it's fair to rewrite something that works for many people just because one person wants control. I've spent years doing unpaid emotional and logistical labor to keep this tradition alive. Now I'm being told that setting boundaries makes me controlling and selfish. I'm questioning whether I really did overstep by standing my ground, or whether Kevin is trying to bulldoze his way into something without doing the work. So AITA for refusing to let my brother take over and drastically change our long-standing family vacation. Even though he says I'm gatekeeping and ruining family bonding. AITA for refusing to keep paying for my sister's shared family expenses after I found out I was the only one actually contributing. I, 26F, moved back to my hometown 2 years ago after finishing school to help my parents. My dad had health issues, my mom was overwhelmed, and my younger sister, Lena, 23F, was still living at home while working part-time. I got a decent job and offered to help with bills until things stabilized. The agreement, at least verbally, was that we would all contribute what we could and revisit the arrangement later. At first, everything seemed reasonable. I paid the electric bill, internet, and covered groceries every other month. My parents handled the mortgage and utilities like water and gas. Lena said she couldn't contribute much yet, but promised she would once she got more hours at work. No one pressured her, including me. I figured family helps family. Over time, my contributions slowly increased. The electric bill went up, groceries got more expensive, and suddenly I was also covering streaming services, household supplies, and sometimes even random repairs. Every time I asked about splitting something, my mom would say, "It's just easier if you handle it," or "Lena will get you back later." I didn't love it, but I didn't want to rock the boat when my dad was still recovering. The issue really started last fall. Lena began going out more, buying new clothes, and posting trips on social media. Nothing extravagant, but enough that I noticed. At the same time, my bank account felt tighter than it should have, even though I hadn't changed my lifestyle. I asked Lena directly if she was in a better position to contribute now. She laughed it off and said, I'm still broke," then changed the subject. A few months ago, I was helping my mom organize paperwork when I noticed a folder labeled Household Budget. I wasn't snooping. She asked me to grab it. Inside was a breakdown of expenses and contributions. That's when I realized something that genuinely shocked me. My parents had been quietly covering Lena's share for over a year, while still telling me we were all contributing equally based on ability. Worse, Lena wasn't contributing at all. Not to rent, not to groceries, not to utilities. Meanwhile, I was paying nearly double what I originally agreed to, under the impression that this was temporary and shared. My parents had decided it was easier to let me cover things because I was responsible and good with money. I confronted my mom first. She admitted it was true, but said they didn't want to stress Lena out. She told me I should be proud of helping and that this is what families do. When I asked why they never told me, she said she knew I'd overreact. Then I confronted Lena. She got defensive immediately and accused me of acting like her parent. She said my job paid more than hers and that I chose to move back home. So this was on me. She also said my parents never asked her to pay, so it wasn't her problem. That was my breaking point. I told them all that I would no longer pay anything beyond my personal expenses. I would buy my own food, pay for my phone, and contribute a fair, clearly defined amount if we put everything in writing. Otherwise, I would start looking for my own place. The fallout was immediate. My parents said I was being cold and transactional. Lena told relatives that I was abandoning the family and financially punishing her. A few aunts and uncles reached out saying I should be more understanding because Lena is still finding herself. I haven't stopped helping entirely. I still pitch in when there's a genuine emergency, and I'm not leaving my parents stranded. But I refuse to keep silently subsidizing a system that benefits one person while everyone pretends it's fair. Now the house is tense. My mom barely speaks to me, and Lena acts like I betrayed her. Part of me feels guilty because I know my parents are stressed again. Another part of me feels taken advantage of and angry that honesty was never part of the arrangement. So, AITA for refusing to keep paying for shared family expenses once I found out I was the only one truly contributing. AITA for refusing to give my sister my house keys and family access after she decided my home was a community space. I, 29F, bought my house 3 years ago after saving for almost a decade. I grew up in a loud, chaotic household where privacy didn't exist, so having my own quiet space was a huge deal to me. The house isn't fancy, but it's mine. I paid the down payment. I pay the mortgage, utilities, repairs, everything. I live alone with my dog, and I like it that way. My sister, Lena, 34F, lives nearby with her husband and 2 kids. I love my niece and nephew, and I help out when I can. I babysit occasionally, host dinners, and let the kids play in my yard. Because of that, Lena started joking that my house was their second home. I laughed it off at first because I thought it was just a phrase. About 6 months ago, Lena asked if she could have a spare key for emergencies. I hesitated, but my parents backed her up, saying it was normal for family to have access in case something happened. Against my better judgment, I gave her a key with the understanding it was for actual emergencies only. That understanding apparently existed only in my head. The first time I realized something was wrong was when I came home from work and found Lena in my kitchen with the kids, cooking. She hadn't told me she was coming over. She said she let herself in because she knew I wouldn't be home yet and wanted to use my oven since hers was broken. I was annoyed but didn't want to cause a scene in front of the kids, so I let it go. It happened again and again. Sometimes I'd come home to toys all over my living room. Sometimes food will be missing from my fridge. Once, I walked out of my bedroom in pajamas to find Lena's husband sitting on my couch watching TV. They acted like I was the weird one for being startled. I finally told Lena that I wasn't comfortable with her letting herself in whenever she wanted. She laughed and said I was being dramatic, that family doesn't need invitations. She also said the kids felt at home here and it would hurt them to suddenly change things. Things escalated when I came back from a weekend trip and realized someone had been in my house while I was gone. The beds were slightly messed up, the trash was full, and my dog sitter asked why the kids had stopped by to visit the dog. Lena admitted she'd brought the kids over to play in my yard and let them rest inside when it got hot. I was furious. I told her that entering my home while I was away crossed a major line. She said I was overreacting and that I should be grateful she was keeping an eye on the place. That's when I asked for the key back. Lena got offended immediately and accused me of treating her like a stranger. She told our parents, who called me to say I was being selfish and ungrateful. They reminded me how much family had helped me growing up and said I was forgetting my roots. My mom specifically said, "This house has always been a place for family." I told them no, this house has always been a place I paid for. After that conversation, I changed the locks. I didn't announce it, but Lena found out when she tried to come over and her key didn't work. She blew up my phone, calling me controlling, cold, and saying I was punishing her kids. She also said I embarrassed her by making her look untrustworthy. Since then, family gatherings have been tense. My parents barely talk to me unless it's to hint that I should apologize and make things right. Lena has told relatives that I'm obsessed with boundaries and value property over people. A few cousins have messaged me saying they understand both sides, but think I should be the bigger person. From my perspective, I didn't buy a house, so I could feel like a guest in it. I never said Lena couldn't visit, just that I want to be asked and present. I don't think that's unreasonable, but the constant pushback is making me doubt myself. So, AITA for taking back my house keys and refusing to let my sister treat my home like a shared family space? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after he insulted me and then expecting me to apologize? This is going to be long, so buckle up. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Mia, 25F, who has always been close to me. We grew up in a small town, and I've always tried to be the responsible one, making sure she didn't get into too much trouble. Mia has been dating her fiancé, Alex, 27M, for about 2 years, and while I liked him at first, things started going downhill after they got engaged. To give some background, I recently bought a house in the city. I moved from our hometown to pursue my career, and I'm very proud of my space. I work hard to save up for it, and am extremely particular about cleanliness, privacy, and boundaries. I've never had roommates or let anyone stay for extended periods because I like my routine and personal space. Mia and Alex got engaged last year, and their wedding is planned for next summer. They live together in an apartment, but recently Alex has been talking about how stressful wedding planning is. A few weeks ago, Mia called me crying and told me that Alex was having a hard time balancing his job, her family, and the wedding preparations. She asked if they could crash at my house for a weekend just to get a break. I told her I'd think about it because I wasn't comfortable with long stays. I made it clear that if they came, I expected them to respect my house rules. Last weekend, Mia and Alex arrived Friday evening. They were initially polite and brought some groceries, which I appreciated. However, almost immediately, Alex started making comments about my house. First, he complained that my couch was too stiff, then that the lighting was too dim for someone who worked from home. By Saturday morning, he was outright criticizing the way I organized my kitchen and commenting on the furniture layout, saying things like, "I don't know how anyone lives like this." I was polite, but clearly irritated. The breaking point came Saturday night. I had prepared dinner for us, a simple homemade pasta, and Alex made a huge deal about it. He said, "Wow, this is interesting. I didn't realize you eat like a college kid still. I was taken aback and tried to brush it off, but he kept going on about how he would never host anyone like this and that I should really invest in some real furniture and dishes. At that point, I told him to stop and reminded him that he was a guest in my home. He laughed and said, "Relax, I'm just being honest. I thought you'd be grateful for my constructive criticism." I was furious. I told him that constructive criticism ends with a solution or an offer to help, not insulting someone's home and lifestyle, and that if he couldn't respect my home, he should leave immediately. Mia got defensive and said, "Come on, it's just a weekend. Can't you just let it slide?" I told her no, because what he said was beyond petty complaints. It was disrespectful. After dinner, I gave them their sleeping arrangements and went to my room. Alex followed me into the hallway and said, "You're overreacting. I think you're being dramatic and need to lighten up." I told him again that if he couldn't stay here without insulting me, he needed to leave. He refused, claiming Mia had told him he could stay. At that point, I called a friend who lives nearby to come pick him up because I didn't want to escalate further. Mia was furious and said I humiliated them. The next morning, Mia texted me a long message accusing me of being controlling, cold, and hostile, and said that I need to apologize to Alex because he didn't do anything wrong. She also implied that my behavior was ruining her relationship and that I was making her wedding planning harder. I didn't reply immediately because I was still processing the situation, but after thinking about it, I told her I would not apologize because I felt completely justified. Mia's response was that she might reconsider having me in the wedding photos and hinted that our relationship could be damaged long-term. I tried explaining my perspective calmly. I'm allowed to have boundaries in my own home, and no one should insult the host. She said that by not apologizing, I was being selfish and ruining family bonds. I admit I understand that she's stressed about the wedding, but I feel like Alex's behavior crossed a line. Since this incident, my parents have also gotten involved. They called me and said, "Maybe you could have just let it slide. He didn't mean to hurt you." I said I couldn't because the comments were rude and demeaning. My dad thinks I'm overreacting. My mom is somewhere in between, and Mia is still upset. I feel justified in standing my ground, but I'm starting to feel guilty because my sister is genuinely hurt and my parents are unhappy. On the other hand, I also feel like Alex's behavior was unacceptable, and I shouldn't be forced to host someone who insults me in my home. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after he insulted me and then not apologizing for it. AITA for refusing to lend my car to my sister after she repeatedly demanded it for months and then accused me of being selfish and controlling. I, 36F, live in a mid-sized city and own a reliable sedan that I rely on every day for work, errands, and personal commitments. I bought it with my own savings after years of budgeting, and I take pride in keeping it clean and well-maintained. My younger sister, Clara, 32F, has always had a more chaotic lifestyle. She has a history of borrowing things without returning them promptly, missing payments for shared expenses, and generally expecting family to accommodate her. A few months ago, Clara called me desperately asking to borrow my car. Her car had broken down, and she said she needed it to get to work and run errands. I told her that I couldn't lend it because I had several work commitments and needed a reliable vehicle every day. I offered to help her find a temporary rental or public transportation options. She was frustrated, but said she'd figure something out. This seemed like the end of the situation until a few weeks later. Clara came over unexpectedly while I was working from home, demanding to borrow the car for a few hours. I explained again that I needed it for work and could not lend it, but she became visibly upset and left in a huff. After that incident, she started texting me almost daily, asking when I could lend it, reminding me of how inconvenient her life was and framing it as if I were being unreasonable. Over the next month, her messages escalated. She would send long texts outlining how family helps family, how she had helped me in the past, and how my refusal made her feel unsupported. She even compared me unfavorably to other relatives, claiming they were better sisters because they were more generous. I tried to explain that lending a car is different from helping in other ways and that I had already offered alternatives, but she dismissed all of them. The tension increased when she started showing up at my apartment unannounced, often right before work hours, demanding to use the car. She said it was an emergency, even when it wasn't, such as needing to pick up groceries or visit friends. Each time, I told her firmly that it was not possible. She accused me of being controlling and selfish, claiming that I valued my comfort over family. Things came to a head last week. Clara's car was still in the shop, and she called me early in the morning, insisting that I drop everything and give her my car. I was about to leave for a client meeting that was crucial for my job and explained that I couldn't make it work. She became angry, yelling over the phone that I was ruining her life and that she couldn't believe I would prioritize work over family. She said I was acting like a parent instead of sister and that she felt completely unsupported. I reminded her that I had offered alternatives, including helping her arrange a rental car, helping her budget for temporary transportation, and even offering rides on days I didn't have work commitments. She refused all of them, saying that none of it was as convenient as just borrowing my car. She also said that my refusal was proof that I was self-centered and didn't care about her. After that phone call, I blocked her number temporarily to calm down. She reached out to our parents and other relatives, claiming that I was being cruel, inflexible, and that I was damaging our sisterly bond. Some family members have tried to mediate, suggesting I give in to avoid conflict. Others have told me my boundaries are reasonable and that she is being manipulative. I feel torn. On one hand, I want to maintain a good relationship with my sister. On the other hand, I also have responsibilities that require a reliable vehicle, and lending my car under these circumstances would create stress and risk. I also feel that she has repeatedly ignored my limits and dismissed my attempts to help in other ways. I've offered multiple compromises, helping her schedule a rental, giving rides on days I'm off, helping with budgeting for transportation, and assisting with errands when possible. Yet she insists that the only acceptable solution is having full access to my car whenever she wants. I'm struggling with guilt because some family members think I'm being too rigid and should just help her out. But I also know that giving in would set a precedent where she expects my resources and time without consideration. I want to support my sister, but I also have to maintain boundaries to protect my life and work. So Reddit, AITA, for refusing to lend my car to my sister after she repeatedly demanded it for months and then accused me of being selfish, controlling, and unsupportive of family. AITA for telling my sister that she's not allowed to have her dog at my wedding. So this is a long one, and I'm kind of torn about how much I'm in the wrong here. I, 28F, am getting married in about 6 months, and we've been planning the wedding for over a year. My fiancé, 30M, and I agreed early on that we wanted a small, intimate wedding with only close family and friends. No kids, no pets, basically a grown-ups only event. I love dogs, but the logistics and potential chaos of having pets at a wedding just seemed overwhelming. My sister, Emily, 26F, on the other hand, has a golden retriever named Max, who she's had since he was a puppy. Max is extremely well-behaved, but he's very attached to Emily. She has brought him to family gatherings before, and honestly, he's a huge part of her life. She's also very protective of him, and has openly said that she couldn't imagine going to an event without him. A couple of months ago, we sent out the save the dates, and Emily immediately messaged me, asking if Max could be at the wedding. I gently reminded her that we were keeping it adults only and that pets weren't part of the plan. She said she understood, but started making hints and jokes about how she'd just sneak him in or how the wedding wouldn't feel right without Max. I thought she was just joking, so I didn't think much of it. Fast forward a few weeks, and I'm in the middle of finalizing seating charts and catering. Emily texts me again, this time more seriously, saying that she's been really anxious about leaving Max with a pet sitter for the day because he's prone to separation anxiety. She said she might not come at all if Max can't be there. At first, I tried to empathize, but I reminded her again that it's my wedding and that pets weren't part of the plan. I suggested she hire a temporary pet sitter she trusts or maybe have someone stay with him at home, but she seemed frustrated. Then things got more complicated. Emily's boyfriend, who's very passive, chimed in and said that we were being unfair and that it wasn't that big of a deal to allow one dog at the wedding. I tried to explain that we were planning a formal indoor ceremony and that having a dog in the venue could be a huge disruption, not just to the ceremony itself, but also to our guests who might be allergic or nervous around dogs. I also mentioned that we've spent months coordinating logistics like food service, seating, and decorations, and adding a pet would complicate everything. Emily didn't respond much after that, but a few days later, she dropped a bomb on me. She said she was considering bringing Max anyway, even if it makes things tense, because she couldn't bear to leave him alone for the day. She also mentioned that our parents were on her side because they don't want her to feel left out. At this point, I was furious. I felt like she was trying to strong-arm me into letting her bring her dog by guilt-tripping me and leveraging our parents. I confronted her and told her straight up. She could either attend without Max or skip the wedding entirely. I explained that it wasn't negotiable and that if she showed up with him, she would be asked to leave. She blew up. She accused me of being selfish and not thinking about her feelings, and she said our parents were disappointed in me for being inflexible. She also hinted that I might regret excluding Max from the wedding because he's family, too. Since that conversation, my parents have been subtly pressuring me. They keep saying things like, "It's not a big deal, it's just a dog," or "Emily is your sister. Can't you compromise?" My fiancé is fully on my side and thinks I'm justified, but I can't help feeling torn. I love my sister, but I also want my wedding to go as planned without unnecessary stress or chaos. Now, Emily hasn't officially RSVP'd, and I'm worried she might skip the wedding entirely. My parents are hinting that it would be sad if she didn't come, and I'm starting to feel guilty, even though I know I've communicated my boundaries clearly. I keep replaying the conversation in my head and wondering if I was too harsh or inflexible. So Reddit, AITA for telling my sister that her dog cannot come to my wedding. I feel like it's my day and my boundaries should be respected, but I also don't want to cause a rift in the family. Additional context that might matter. Max is not service dog certified. He's just her pet. The venue does not allow pets as a rule, which I didn't make up. Emily has a history of being very attached to her dog and can get defensive if she feels her bond is being challenged. I am fully prepared to have security or staff enforce this if necessary. I just want to know if I'm being unreasonable or selfish for standing my ground. AITA for refusing to lie to my sister about her wedding dress and causing a huge family feud. So this is going to be long, but bear with me because there's a lot of context. 26F, have a younger sister, Lily, 23F, and we've always had a complicated relationship. We're close in some ways, but we clash constantly over what I'd call taste and logic. Our parents tend to stay out of it, which usually works out, but this time things escalated in a way I didn't expect. Lily got engaged about a year ago, and I've been helping her plan the wedding. I'm creative, I have some design experience, and I've always done DIY stuff for family events. From the beginning, I made it clear I wanted to help in ways that I felt I could, like picking color schemes, helping with decorations, and so on. She was fine with that, mostly. Now, onto the dress situation. Lily has always been obsessed with being the center of attention, and that extends to her fashion choices. She tried on about 30 different dresses over several months. A few weeks ago, she finally picked a dress she said she loved. I had reservations. It wasn't ugly, exactly, but it didn't suit her body shape at all, and honestly, it was extremely impractical. The train was enormous, and the bodice was so tight, I couldn't imagine her moving comfortably. But I also know how important the dream dress thing is, so I kept quiet initially. A few days later, she asked me to go with her to a final fitting. When we got there, the dress was worse than I remembered. The fabric didn't fall properly. The beading made it heavy, and the shape was unflattering from almost every angle. I tried to find something nice to say, but I couldn't. I know that telling her directly that it looked bad would crush her, and it's not like I wanted to hurt her. Here's where it gets complicated. She asked me flat out if I thought it looked good. I hesitated, and then I said, "It's a really bold choice." I thought that was neutral, maybe even positive, but she pressed me, "Do you think it looks good on me?" I froze. I thought about lying, but something inside me snapped. I finally said, "Honestly, I think it's not the most flattering on you. Maybe we should try a few more options." She froze. Then she laughed nervously and said, "Oh, wow. I didn't think you'd say that." I tried to explain gently about the shape, the weight, and how it might make dancing and sitting uncomfortable. I told her that I wanted her to look amazing, not just follow some idea of a dream dress. She started crying in the store, which made me panic. I hugged her and tried to calm her down, but she was upset. Fast forward a week, and the drama exploded. Lily told my parents and a few family friends that I had been mean about her dress and tried to ruin her wedding. My parents were annoyed at me, but they said they understood that honesty is tricky. Lily, however, started posting on social media about how hurt she was and how family members should support her no matter what. Some of my relatives started taking her side, saying I should have lied to spare her feelings. The final straw came at a family dinner. Lily brought up the dress in front of everyone, saying she had wanted honest opinions and that I had failed. I tried to explain that I was being honest because I care about her, not to hurt her, but she interrupted me and started yelling. Things got so heated that my parents had to step in and move the conversation. Later that night, Lily texted me saying I was the worst sister ever and that she didn't want me involved in the wedding planning anymore. Since then, the tension has been unbearable. My friends mostly support me, saying I did the right thing by being honest, but my family is divided. Some think I should have just lied and saved the peace, while others are on my side. I'm honestly torn because I don't want to ruin our relationship, but I also feel like lying would have set a terrible precedent. I've considered apologizing in some way, but I'm not sure what kind of apology would work here. Apologizing for hurting her feelings seems fair, but apologizing for being honest feels wrong. I don't want to be a villain in my own sister's life, but I also don't want to compromise my integrity. So, AITA for being honest about my sister's dress, even though it hurt her feelings and caused a family feud. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to give my brother's partner an expensive gift because of her behavior towards my kids. So, this is a bit long, but I'll try to lay everything out clearly. I, 34F, have 2 kids, ages 8 and 5. My younger brother, 30M, recently got engaged to someone I'll call Lisa, 29F. I'll be honest, I've never been super close with Lisa. She and my brother have been together for about 3 years, but she has always been a bit difficult around my kids. She's never outright mean, but she's dismissive and impatient, especially with my younger child, who has some mild anxiety issues. I try not to let it get to me because my brother seems happy, but my kids pick up on the tension, and I notice them being more reserved whenever Lisa is around. Anyway, the problem started when Lisa asked me for gift suggestions for her bridal shower. I gave her a few neutral ideas, nothing expensive or personal. She thanked me, but later told my brother she really wanted a high-end espresso machine that costs around $800. That felt excessive to me, and honestly, I was uncomfortable buying something so expensive for someone who has repeatedly ignored my kids' feelings. I told my brother I wasn't planning to buy the espresso machine and would prefer to get something smaller and more thoughtful, like a nice cookbook or a gift card for a local cafe. I explained that while I love Lisa, I don't feel comfortable spending that much money on someone who doesn't treat my children with care. My brother was visibly upset, but said he understood. Fast forward to the bridal shower. Most of the guests had given Lisa expensive gifts, and I gave her my gift and card. During the gift opening, Lisa seemed disappointed and asked me directly if I had gotten the espresso machine. I said no, I had picked out something I thought she'd enjoy. She gave me a half smile and moved on, but later that evening, she cornered me and said, "I thought we were closer than this. It really hurts that you wouldn't get me what I want. Don't you care about me at all?" I tried to explain my reasoning gently, mentioning that I wanted to respect her, but also consider my children's comfort around her. She got defensive, saying it was ridiculous that I'd let my kids influence my generosity and that I should separate personal feelings from gift giving. I told her I could understand why she felt that way, but I wasn't going to buy something I couldn't justify to myself. After that, my brother got involved. He said I had embarrassed Lisa in front of everyone and that I was being petty and childish. He also pointed out that my kids shouldn't dictate how I show kindness to family members. I tried to explain that it wasn't about controlling anyone or being petty, but about boundaries and protecting my children's emotional safety. The argument got heated. My brother said that I was being unfair and that I was letting my kids' issues come between me and his happiness. I reminded him that my kids are my responsibility and that any relationship I have with Lisa will affect them too. He told me I was overreacting and that Lisa's feelings mattered more than my personal discomfort. I was shocked. Now, a week later, my extended family is divided. Some relatives say I was right to protect my children and that Lisa can't expect everyone to spend large sums on her, especially when she hasn't been considerate toward my kids. Others say I should have just gone along with it, even if reluctantly, to keep the peace and maintain family harmony. Lisa hasn't spoken to me directly since the shower, but my brother's attitude toward me has cooled significantly, and family gatherings feel tense. I feel caught in a moral gray area. I genuinely want to maintain a good relationship with my brother and his future wife, but I also don't want to compromise my principles or my children's comfort. I've been replaying the situation in my head and wondering if I went too far by refusing the gift. On the other hand, I don't think it's fair to demand that I spend hundreds of dollars on someone who has repeatedly made my kids uncomfortable. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to buy my brother's fiancée an expensive gift because of her behavior toward my children. AITA for refusing to host my brother's wedding at my house after he claimed I was destroying his dream wedding and choosing my comfort over family. I, 37F, live in a 3-bedroom suburban house that I bought 6 years ago. I work full-time and have spent a lot of time and money making this house comfortable and organized. I value having my own space, and while I enjoy hosting friends and family occasionally, I also need to maintain boundaries for my mental health. My younger brother, Daniel, 34M, is planning to get married next summer. He and his fiancée have been talking about the wedding for a long time and initially asked me if I would consider letting them use my house for part of it, primarily the rehearsal dinner and some pre-wedding gatherings. I told him that I didn't feel comfortable hosting the wedding at my house. It's not large enough to accommodate the number of guests they wanted, and I didn't want to deal with the stress, cleanup, or potential damage that comes with hosting a wedding. I offered alternatives. I could help them find a local venue, help plan the rehearsal dinner at a restaurant, or even contribute financially to help cover a small rental space. I thought this was a fair compromise because I still wanted to be involved in the process without taking on something that would overwhelm me. Daniel did not take it well. He said I was ruining his dream wedding and that I was selfish for putting my comfort over family. He insisted that it would be cheaper to use my house and that I was being unreasonable by prioritizing myself over him. I explained that the size of my house and the logistics involved would make it nearly impossible to accommodate all the guests, and that I wasn't refusing because I didn't care about him, but because it wasn't practical. Over the next few weeks, he kept bringing it up. He sent long messages detailing how easy it would be to rearrange furniture, rent tents, and even hire cleaners afterward. He claimed that any inconvenience to me was minor compared to the happiness of having the wedding at my house. He framed it as if my refusal was a personal attack on him and his fiancée, rather than a matter of practicality. Then things escalated. Daniel began messaging other family members, telling them that I was being difficult and that I didn't care about family. Some relatives called me, gently suggesting I reconsider, saying it would mean a lot to Daniel if I agreed. Others supported my decision, saying that hosting a wedding is a huge responsibility and that my concerns were valid. One evening, Daniel showed up at my house unannounced with his fiancée. They wanted to measure spaces, discuss tent rentals, and talk through table arrangements. I told them firmly that I had already explained why hosting the wedding wasn't possible and that I couldn't discuss it in person because I had work obligations. He became visibly frustrated and accused me of avoiding the conversation, saying that I was being controlling and unsupportive. I tried to set a compromise. I offered to host a small, private dinner for close family the night before the wedding or help organize pre-wedding events elsewhere. I reiterated that I wanted to be supportive, but that hosting a large wedding in my home wasn't feasible. He refused all suggestions, claiming that my partial help was meaningless compared to letting them use the house. The conflict has now affected our family dynamics. Daniel barely speaks to me outside of wedding planning discussions, and when we do communicate, he is passive-aggressive and accusatory. My parents are frustrated with the tension, but also understand my concerns. Daniel's fiancée has called me cold and unsupportive, and some cousins have implied that I'm being controlling and selfish. I feel torn. I genuinely want to support Daniel and be involved in his wedding, but I also don't want to compromise my personal space and mental well-being. Hosting a wedding at my house would be overwhelming, expensive, and stressful, and I've already offered to help in multiple ways that don't involve me taking on that responsibility. I worry that no matter what I do, Daniel will see it as a personal rejection and that this could permanently damage our relationship. I also worry that giving in would set a precedent where he expects me to sacrifice my comfort for family events in the future. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my brother's wedding at my house after he accused me of being selfish and prioritizing my comfort over family, even though I've offered alternative ways to help. AITA for telling my sister she can't bring her boyfriend to my wedding after what he did at our engagement party. So, this is going to be a long one, but I need an honest opinion. I, 27F, have been engaged to my fiancé, Mark, 29M, for about 8 months. We are planning our wedding for next summer, and most things are coming together, but we recently had a huge issue that has put me in a weird position with my family. About a month ago, we had an engagement party at my parents' house. It was meant to be small, just close family and a few friends. My sister, Emily, 25F, brought her boyfriend, Josh, who she's been dating for about a year. Up until that point, I thought things were fine between us. Josh seemed okay when I met him a couple of times at her apartment. But the engagement party completely changed my opinion. The night of the party, Josh showed up visibly drunk. He had been drinking beforehand, and my parents noticed right away. At first, I tried to ignore it because he seemed harmless, just loud and joking. But then, halfway through the party, he decided it was funny to start making jokes about Mark and me, our relationship, and our future marriage. Some of them were kind of funny in a sarcastic way, but a lot of them were super inappropriate, like mocking the fact that Mark is slightly older than me and that I wanted a traditional wedding. I tried to laugh it off, but he wouldn't stop. Then, things got worse. Josh apparently decided it would be hilarious to start giving advice to Mark about how to handle a wife. He leaned over, grabbed a glass, and made a toast that was essentially a roast of me and Mark. My parents looked horrified, my friends were uncomfortable, and Mark was quietly trying to sip his drink and ignore him. I eventually had to pull Josh aside and ask him to calm down, and he laughed it off like it was all a joke. I told him that this wasn't a joke and he was crossing a line, but he just shrugged. Later, he apparently decided to apologize by trying to get everyone to dance with him. He somehow managed to spill an entire tray of hors d'oeuvres on my aunt's dress, and instead of apologizing properly, he laughed and said, "Well, at least it's not on the carpet." My aunt was furious, and my mom nearly had a heart attack. I ended up cleaning up most of the mess myself while Mark tried to calm everyone down. By the end of the night, I was shaking with anger. Mark was upset too, but he tried to brush it off and said, "Don't worry about him. He's just an idiot." I felt a mix of humiliation and frustration because my engagement party, something that should have been special, ended up being overshadowed by Josh's behavior. After the party, I talked to Emily privately and told her that Josh had completely overstepped and that I didn't feel comfortable having him at the wedding. Emily, of course, did not take this well. She accused me of overreacting, said I was being controlling, and even compared Josh's behavior to boys being boys. I explained calmly that there's a difference between harmless joking and making your sister look like a fool in front of all our friends and family. She said I was being unfair and that she had every right to bring her boyfriend. We've had several arguments since then. Emily keeps bringing up that I can't police her life and that I'm drama. She even told my mom that I'm being selfish and that it's not my wedding to control who attends. My mom is torn because she understands my feelings but doesn't want to upset Emily either. Mark is fully on my side, saying he completely agrees that Josh's behavior was unacceptable and that it's not a problem to ask him not to attend. Now, Emily is threatening to not come to the wedding at all if Josh isn't invited. She said things like, "If you love me, you'll let him come," which I find manipulative. I'm starting to worry that this might cause a huge rift in the family. My dad supports me, saying that Josh's behavior was completely inappropriate and that it's reasonable for me to exclude him. My mom is more neutral and keeps hoping we can find a compromise, but I honestly don't see one. I know some people might say I'm overreacting or being petty, but I feel like allowing Josh at the wedding would disrespect Mark and me. This is supposed to be one of the most important days of our lives, and I don't want someone ruining it because they can't control themselves. I'm also concerned that if I let him come, it sets a precedent that inappropriate behavior is acceptable at family events. So, AITA for telling my sister she can't bring her boyfriend to my wedding after what he did at our engagement party. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé handle our family's financial matters for our upcoming wedding. I, 27F, am currently engaged to my fiancé, Mark, 29M, and our wedding is coming up in about 6 months. My sister, Emily, 25F, recently got engaged to her longtime boyfriend, Jake, 28M, and while we're both excited, a huge conflict has arisen around the wedding planning and finances. I want to know if I'm being unreasonable. To give some context, my family has a history of being a bit financially chaotic. My parents are lovely, but often rely on others to manage large expenses, and Emily has followed in their footsteps. Growing up, she always had a knack for charming people into paying for things and rarely managed her own money responsibly. Jake, on the other hand, has always been very controlling with finances and is extremely meticulous. At first, this seemed like a good balance, but it has started causing tension. When Mark and I got engaged, we discussed everything in detail before approaching our parents. We wanted a wedding that was modest but still memorable, and we were planning to split the cost with our families. Because my parents are not great with budgeting, we decided I would handle the majority of the planning and financial decisions. Mark and I both have stable incomes, so we felt confident in taking this on. Emily and Jake's wedding is about a year after ours, and initially, everything seemed fine. But a few months ago, Emily approached me with an unusual request. She said that since I had experience planning my wedding and handling the finances, she wanted me to oversee her wedding's financial aspects too, with Jake's approval. I politely declined, explaining that our wedding planning already takes up a lot of my time, and I wasn't comfortable managing someone else's wedding budget. I offered to give advice or share resources, but Emily and Jake seemed disappointed. Fast forward to last week, Emily and Jake invited me over to discuss their budget. The moment we sat down, Jake started taking over the conversation, asking for my expert opinion on what was reasonable and what wasn't. I tried to stick to general advice, like comparing vendors and looking for reasonable prices, but Jake kept interrupting and questioning every suggestion. Then he suddenly asked, "Since you handled your wedding finances so well, maybe you can just manage ours too?" I said no firmly this time. I explained that it's their wedding and their responsibility to manage the money, and I'm happy to help with advice, but I cannot take control of their finances. That's when things escalated. Jake accused me of being selfish, claiming that I was the only one in the family capable of doing this right, and Emily got emotional, saying I was turning our wedding into a battlefield. The next few days were tense. My parents are neutral, but express they understand Jake's point about my planning skills. Emily has stopped speaking to me, and Jake sent a text accusing me of trying to make their wedding fail because I don't want them to have a nice day. Mark is frustrated but supports my decision because he sees how controlling Jake has been. I feel guilty because I do want my sister to have a great wedding, but I also know that stepping in would set a precedent where I'm expected to manage everyone's wedding and life choices. On the other hand, Emily and Jake's anger makes me worry that I'm overreacting or being too rigid. So, AITA for refusing to manage my sister and future brother-in-law's wedding finances, even though I have experience and they insist I should. Additional details that might matter. I offered to consult and give advice multiple times, including vendor recommendations and budget tips. Emily and Jake's combined income is higher than mine, so they are fully capable of handling it themselves. I've been helping my sister emotionally with planning ideas and dress shopping, but finances are a hard boundary for me. This conflict has started affecting family dynamics, with my parents trying to mediate and my sister giving me the silent treatment. I'm conflicted because I want to maintain a healthy relationship with my sister, but I also feel that financial boundaries are important and I shouldn't be guilt-tripped into doing something I'm uncomfortable with. AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée bring her dog to our wedding, even though it caused a huge family argument. I, 28F, am currently planning my wedding with my fiancée, Mark, 30M, and everything had been going relatively smoothly until my brother, Sam, 32M, got engaged to his fiancée, Carla, 29F. Sam and I have always had a pretty normal sibling relationship, sometimes close, sometimes distant, but we've always been able to communicate well enough for family events. The issue started when Carla began making requests for the wedding that I wasn't expecting. Carla is very attached to her dog, a border collie named Max. She and Sam have been dating for about 3 years, and Max has been a huge part of her life for that entire time. Early in the planning process, Carla casually mentioned, "Wouldn't it be cute if Max walked down the aisle with us during your wedding?" At the time, I laughed it off and said, "That's sweet, but it's our wedding, so we'll have to see if that works." I honestly didn't think much of it until a few months later, when she started pressuring Sam and indirectly me about it. She sent me multiple emails and texts showing pictures of weddings with dogs in tuxedos and flower crowns, saying things like, "Imagine how adorable Max would look in a little bow tie. It would make your wedding unforgettable." I try to be polite and explain that our venue has strict rules about pets. It's an outdoor garden venue that doesn't allow animals for safety and liability reasons. I also mentioned that our photographer was not experienced with animals, and I didn't want to risk anyone getting hurt or having chaos on what's supposed to be our special day. Carla didn't take this well. She started messaging me daily, telling me that I was being unreasonable and selfish for not wanting Max there. She even went so far as to tell me that not letting her dog attend would cause drama with the wedding party. Sam initially tried to mediate, telling Carla that we had a venue rule and that it wasn't personal. But over time, he started getting defensive and saying things like, "You should consider how important Max is to Carla. It's not just a dog, he's her family." At this point, I was getting frustrated. I offered multiple compromises. I could let them include Max in a photo shoot before or after the ceremony, or we could have a symbolic nod to him in the wedding program. I even suggested a small dog-friendly event after the wedding where Carla could bring Max and celebrate with family. Carla rejected all of these ideas, saying that it wasn't the same and that she and Sam felt very strongly about having him in the ceremony itself. Things came to a head at a family meeting about the wedding. My parents were neutral but slightly leaned toward Carla because they love her and think Max is cute. Sam, predictably, sided with Carla. I tried to explain that we were not being cruel and that it was a matter of safety, liability, and the flow of the ceremony. I also reminded everyone that it's our wedding, not theirs, and that as hosts, Mark and I get the final say. Carla then got emotional, saying that she felt hurt and excluded and that it seemed like I didn't value her or her family, which includes Max. I stood my ground and told them all that while I understand Carla loves her dog, our wedding can't accommodate pets due to venue rules, liability concerns, and logistical reasons. I also mentioned that the photographer had warned me that including a dog could disrupt the schedule and cause stress for the bridal party. Sam got visibly angry, and Carla stormed out, saying she would have to reconsider being in the wedding at all. Since that meeting, the tension has been unbearable. My parents have called me a bridezilla, and Sam has stopped speaking to me, claiming I'm being unfair to Carla. A few extended family members have taken sides, some saying I should compromise, others supporting me for sticking to my boundaries. I feel like I'm being painted as the villain for enforcing reasonable rules, but at the same time, I understand Carla's attachment to her dog. Mark has been supportive and tells me I'm not wrong, but he's also worried about the family fallout. We've discussed possibly offering Carla a private ceremony or photo session with Max outside of the wedding, but she's made it clear that she doesn't want that compromise. She wants him at the ceremony itself. I know some people might think I'm overreacting for not letting a dog attend, but from my perspective, it's not just about a preference. It's about safety, logistics, and rules set by the venue. I feel like if I bend on this, it will set a precedent for future issues, especially with Carla, who seems used to getting her way. So, Reddit. AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée bring her dog to our wedding, even though it has caused a huge family conflict. Character count, 6,537 if you want. I can also write a second story with an even more dramatic, popular Reddit twist, which could hit close to 7,000 characters exactly and include the escalating family tension and fallout style that goes viral. Do you want me to do that next? AITA for refusing to let my sister stay in my house indefinitely after she called me selfish for prioritizing my privacy. I, 38F, live alone in a 3-bedroom townhouse in a suburban neighborhood. I work full-time from home several days a week, and I have a very structured routine because of that. I love my home and the balance it gives me, and I've always been very clear about boundaries when it comes to personal space. My younger sister, Lisa, 34F, has a very different lifestyle. She's social, spontaneous, and has a habit of assuming family will accommodate her, even when it's inconvenient. A few months ago, Lisa had a falling out with her roommate and asked if she could stay with me for a few weeks while she got back on her feet. I agreed at first, under the condition that it would be temporary and that she would respect my space and schedule. I also made it clear that she would have to contribute to groceries and household chores, just like any responsible adult. I thought this was reasonable and fair. At first, things were fine. Lisa stayed in the guest room, helped with basic chores, and generally tried to be considerate. But after about 3 weeks, she started acting as if she lived there permanently. She moved more of her stuff into the house, began reorganizing the guest room to suit her taste, and started using my kitchen at odd hours without cleaning up. I reminded her gently about the temporary nature of her stay and the boundaries we had discussed, but she brushed it off, saying she was just making herself at home. Then she suggested that I should move my home office into the guest room so she could have the main bedroom, claiming it would be more comfortable for her and that I could just deal with it since I don't have to sleep in it. I refused, explaining that my office is essential for my work and that she was staying temporarily. She got upset and said I was being difficult and selfish for putting a room over her needs. Over the next few weeks, the tension grew. Lisa began inviting friends over without asking, sometimes late at night, which disrupted my work and sleep schedule. She also started making passive-aggressive comments about how unwelcoming my house felt and how I was controlling by not letting her make herself fully comfortable. I reminded her that I had already offered help in other ways, like assisting her in finding a new apartment, helping with transportation, and even contributing to a deposit if necessary, but she rejected all of it. The situation escalated further when she contacted our parents, telling them I was cold and selfish, and that I was prioritizing my comfort over family. Some family members called me and suggested I let her stay longer to avoid conflict. I explained that I was not refusing to help her entirely, but that her stay had already extended far beyond what was reasonable and that continuing to let her live with me indefinitely was not sustainable. They still pressed, saying family should always help, and she was going through a hard time. Last week, she told me directly that if I didn't give her permanent access to the house, she would be forced to reevaluate our relationship. She accused me of valuing my space over her well-being and said that my refusal made her feel unwanted and unimportant. I tried to reason with her one last time, explaining that I care about her and want to help, but I have limits. I suggested a strict move-out date, offered to assist with moving costs, and even offered temporary storage for her things if she needed time to sort out her new place. She rejected everything and left angrily, saying I was choosing walls over family and that I was the worst sister imaginable. Now, our family dynamics are tense. Some relatives support my decision and think my boundaries are healthy, while others say I'm being too rigid and that family comes first. Lisa has barely spoken to me since, and when we do interact, she's passive-aggressive and makes comments about how cold I am. I feel guilty, but I also feel like I've already done a lot to support her, and that continuing to let her stay would only reward her disregard for boundaries. I'm torn between wanting to maintain a relationship with my sister and protecting my home and mental well-being. I feel like I'm being accused of being selfish simply for enforcing reasonable boundaries, even though I've gone out of my way to provide alternatives and help her transition. At the same time, I don't want this to irreparably damage our relationship. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister stay indefinitely in my house and prioritizing my privacy, even though she says I'm selfish and unwelcoming. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she accused me of ruining her big day over something I didn't even do. So, some context. I, 28F, and my sister, Jenna, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, she was the golden child in our family, straight A, student, athletic, socially popular, and I was always the quieter, more reserved kid. Our parents, while not overtly favoring her, definitely gave her more leeway and praise, which fueled a lot of resentment on both sides. We've clashed over small things before, but nothing as explosive as what happened recently. Jenna got engaged about a year ago, and from the beginning, she wanted her wedding to be this perfect storybook event. She planned a huge destination wedding, which she insisted would have all of our extended family, including distant relatives I barely know. She started dropping hints that she expected me to contribute financially, saying things like, "It wouldn't be the same without you helping out," and, "You know weddings are expensive, right? I really hope you can contribute." I was a little taken aback because I'm not exactly rolling in money. I work a stable but modest job, and I've been saving for my own future and moving to a new apartment. I tried to politely express that I might not be able to contribute a huge amount, but she said, "Just whatever you can do will mean a lot." Fast forward to a couple of months before the wedding. I had agreed to chip in a small amount that I was comfortable with, and I was also helping with some of the planning logistics, like researching hotels for family members and coordinating transportation. I thought we were okay. Then, 2 weeks before the wedding, she suddenly called me in tears, saying that the caterer was overbooked for our preferred menu and that the photographer's schedule was messed up. She said, "I don't know what I'm going to do. This is all my fault." I tried to reassure her, suggesting practical solutions like adjusting the catering options or moving the photography times around. She thanked me, but sounded frustrated, like she didn't really want advice, just support. Here's where it gets messy. The day of the wedding arrived, and it was actually going well at first. The ceremony started. The venue looked beautiful, and everyone seemed in good spirits. During the reception, however, Jenna suddenly screamed at me in front of nearly 200 guests, accusing me of ruining her wedding. I was completely shocked. She claimed that I had mismanaged the seating chart, which apparently led to her college friends being seated apart from each other, and that the flower arrangement for the centerpieces wasn't perfectly symmetrical. I tried to explain that I didn't handle either of those things. The seating chart was coordinated by a professional planner, and the florist arranged the flowers. But she kept yelling, saying, "You've always been jealous of me. You just want to ruin my life." People were staring, family members were whispering, and I just froze. I didn't argue anymore because I didn't want a bigger scene, but I left the reception early, feeling humiliated and heartbroken. My parents tried to calm her down, but she continued to lash out, calling me selfish and accusing me of not caring about her happiness. After the wedding, she sent me a long text demanding the rest of the money she had expected me to contribute. She claimed that because I ruined her big day, I now owed her an additional amount to cover the perceived losses and stress. I was stunned. I refused, calmly explaining that I hadn't done anything to ruin her wedding and that I already contributed what I could. I also pointed out that the things she blamed me for were handled by professionals and completely out of my control. She hasn't spoken to me since then and has blocked me on social media. Our parents are on her side, saying that I should have done more and that families should support each other no matter what. My friends, however, think I was right to refuse, saying that it's unfair to be blamed and financially punished for something I didn't do. I feel hurt, angry, and frankly exhausted from trying to maintain any kind of relationship with her. I've been questioning if I overreacted or if I should have just paid to keep the peace, but at the same time, it feels completely wrong to pay someone because they falsely accuse me in front of hundreds of people. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to pay my sister's wedding after she claimed I ruined it when I literally had nothing to do with the mistakes she's blaming me for. AITA for confronting my sister over her borrowing my wedding gift and causing a huge family fight. This is going to be a bit long, so bear with me. I, 27F, recently got married to my husband, Tom, 29M. We had a small wedding, mostly close family and friends, nothing extravagant, but very meaningful. One thing that I'll preface is that my family has always had a bit of a competitive dynamic, especially between me and my older sister, Rachel, 30F. We've always been close in some ways, but there's always been a lot of underlying tension because she's very competitive and tends to one-up things, even if unintentionally. Anyway, for our wedding, we received a number of gifts, but one that really meant a lot to me was from my grandma. She gave me a beautiful, handmade jewelry box that had been in the family for generations. She told me it was my grandmother's favorite piece, and she wanted me to have it as a symbol of love and family heritage. I was incredibly touched and immediately put it in a special place in our bedroom. Fast forward about a week after the wedding, my sister comes over unannounced. She had a weekend off and said she wanted to catch up with me and see the new house. I was happy to see her, even though I was still adjusting from all the post-wedding chaos. We were sitting in the living room, chatting, and I went to the bedroom to grab us some water. That's when I noticed that my jewelry box was gone from its place. At first, I thought maybe Tom had moved it or maybe I had placed it somewhere else in a rush. But when I asked him, he looked confused and told me he hadn't touched it. Then, I started looking around the bedroom and realized some of my other smaller pieces of jewelry were also missing. My heart sank because this box wasn't just a gift. It was a family heirloom. I didn't want to accuse anyone without evidence, so I quietly waited for a chance to see if anyone had seen it. A couple of days later, I was at my parents' house for a family dinner. Rachel was there, and I casually asked if she had seen the box. She laughed it off and said, "Oh, you mean the thing Grandma gave you?" "Yeah, I borrowed it to show my friends. I didn't think you'd mind." At that moment, my blood ran cold. I asked her if she was serious, and she said yes, insisting that she only had it for a day, and everyone loves it. They wanted to see it. I told her that it wasn't hers to borrow and that it was very special to me. She rolled her eyes and said I was overreacting. My mom tried to mediate, saying, "It's just a jewelry box, maybe let her have it for a while," but I couldn't let it go. I explained that it wasn't just a box, it was a family heirloom with sentimental value, and taking it without permission was not okay. Rachel got defensive and said, "I didn't steal it, I just borrowed it. Why are you making such a big deal out of nothing?" My dad jumped in, saying that maybe I was too sensitive and that family heirlooms aren't really about rules, they're about sharing. At this point, I started to raise my voice. I said that there's a difference between sharing and taking something that has deep emotional value without consent. I told her that if she had asked me first, maybe I would have said yes, but the way she just assumed she could take it was disrespectful. The argument escalated quickly. Rachel started bringing up past things where I supposedly made a scene over smaller issues. Mom and Dad tried to calm us down, but it became clear that this wasn't going to end without someone getting upset. I eventually stormed out and went home. I was shaking with anger and frustration because this isn't just about a box. It's about respect, boundaries, and the way she treats me. The next day, I texted her calmly asking her to return the box, and she replied with a one-word message, "Fine." When she returned it, she did so begrudgingly and made a comment about how I should chill out more. I was furious, but tried to stay composed because I didn't want to escalate further. Now, a few weeks later, the family gatherings have been tense. My parents seem upset with me for making a big deal, and Rachel has barely spoken to me. Even some cousins who were neutral have made comments about how I should let it go. Tom is fully on my side, saying that what she did was wrong and disrespectful, and he's upset with my family for not taking it seriously. I feel like I did the right thing in standing up for myself and for something that has sentimental value, but I'm starting to doubt myself because my entire family seems to think I overreacted. I haven't brought it up again because I don't want to escalate things further, but the tension has been palpable at every family event since. So Reddit, AITA for confronting my sister over her borrowing my wedding gift and causing a family fight? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.